And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace here on location in downtown Phoenix, getting ready for America off tomorrow. So why am I here a day early? Because I'm doing the kickoff banquet with the pastors tonight with Lucas Miles, a good friend from TPUSA Faith and great friend of the show, Megan Basham. We're going to be here hosting this pastors banquet tonight to kick off the event. And then we hope we're going to see about 20,000 of you over the next few days. Todd and Aaron are hopping on a big old jet airliner to head out here right after the show today. I'm going to take a brief little step away from today's show in segment 2. So Todd and Aaron are going to kick off Buy, Sell, or Hold without me because I'm going to step in and do a few minutes on the Charlie Kirk Show with Andrew Colvett, his producer, and their team, talking about America Fest and also some of the issues of the day. And then I'll be with you for the entirety of hour 2. All right. Also want to let you know that we're brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. You know, the reality of life, that everything comes with danger, but we can't just stay hidden all day. And when life deals you serious situations, you need to make and need to have serious equipment. And that's what I love about Jace, is they came to us during the scamdemic and said, hey, what's going on right here? That can never happen again. What they've done with drugs like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, if they could do that with those, why couldn't they do that with penicillin, doxycycline, and some venerable antibiotics? And so they came up with the original Jace case, and now they have expanded over the years, designed by doctors and field medics. They've got 3 tactical first aid kits for you as well. The Jace Aid Mini, the Jace Aid Medic, the Jace Aid Trauma. All right, and you can get that. You can expand the original Jace case to medications that you and your family need, just to make sure that you've got backups and that peace of mind. And yes, that backup can include the aforementioned ivermectin as well. And then right now, you can go enter a chance to win. They're hosting this week a giveaway of all 3 Jace Aid packs at jace.com, Jase. So you can go there right now and enter for your chance to win. If you've got leftover HSA or FSA funds, some that expire at the end of the year, don't let that money go to waste because Jace products are eligible for that too. So enter the promo code DACE at checkout for a discount on your order. That's promo code DEACE at jase.com. And again, as we're winding down here, the last few shows of the year for us, if you're still looking for last minute gift ideas, but now you're concerned about, hey, can I get it delivered to that loved one in time? How about you don't have to worry about that at all? We now have digital gift cards for Blaze TV subscriptions for you. And that can all be done online. No shipping, no waiting, no stress. And you're going to make sure that your loved one, the person you care about, they've got all the great coverage we're going to do well into next year, all of next year. That includes the election. You can't beat it right now. Use the code DACE20 for $20 off. Code DACE20 for $20 off at giftblazetv.com. That's giftblazetv.com with the code DACE20. All right, again, Buy, Sell, or Hold here on a Wednesday, our final one of the year, our final conversation of the year with Daniel Horowitz at the final segment of the program. But let's kick this thing off, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by What Probable Cause? The FBI did not believe it had probable cause to raid President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home in 2022, but moved forward amid pressure from the Biden Justice Department, with an official saying he didn't give a damn about the optics of the search. According to a Fox News review of emails between FBI and Justice Department officials in the months leading up to the August 2022 raid of Mar-a-Lago, with FBI officials expressing concerns about a lack of probable cause to execute the search warrant on the then former president's residence in Palm Beach. Another email revealed that the FBI's Washington field office did, quote, not believe, and has articulated to the DOJ, we have established probable cause for the search warrant for classified records at Mar-a-Lago, end quote. In yet another email, an FBI agent quotes then Deputy Assistant Attorney General George Toscas in a meeting, pointing out the then Deputy Assistant Attorney General allegedly said he did not give a damn about the optics of executing a raid at then former President Trump's residence. In other news, President Trump posted this in part on Truth Social last night, saying, quote, Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before until such a time as they return to the United States of America all the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us, end quote. Trump also signed a proclamation further restricting and limiting the entry of foreign nationals to protect the security of the United States. It continues full restrictions and entry limitations of nationals from the original 12 high-risk countries, and adds full restrictions on entry limitations of 5 additional countries based on recent analysis: Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, South Sudan, and Syria, as well as individuals holding Palestinian Authority-issued travel documents. The proclamation adds restrictions on several other countries as well. We go to the state of Minnesota, where Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara got the word of God out and whizzed on it because he likes illegal immigration.
It's especially personal to me, having been raised a Catholic, to be in a Christian church this morning as we are approaching Christmas. And I cannot help but think of what is happening in our city today and how that echoes with how outsiders have been treated for thousands of years, how Mary and Joseph themselves were considered outsiders and forced to stay in a barn. That's what we're getting ready to commemorate as Christians around the world, while all of this fear is happening right here in our town.
Check out this story. A prominent nuclear science professor at MIT was shot and killed inside his home in a swanky Massachusetts neighborhood Monday night, with police sharing few details around the circumstances. Nuno Loureiro, a 47-year-old, was found inside the Brookline house by police responding to reports of a man shot. Loureiro was rushed to an area hospital where he was pronounced dead on Tuesday morning. Loureiro is a native of Portugal and was a member of the school's departments of nuclear science and engineering and physics, and director of the MIT Plasma Science and Fusion Center. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman announced Nick Reiner will be charged with the double homicide of his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner. The 32-year-old was scheduled to appear in court yesterday but could not be cleared medically. If convicted, Reiner could face the death penalty, but that seems unlikely in California. And finally, there's this.
I know all you guys want to know what happened during my meeting with Erica, so here it goes. We met in Nashville because I didn't want to fly anywhere and have my plane shut down by Israel, so I told her to come here instead. She gets here, and first thing she does is she gives me some homemade cookies. And I'm like, I ain't eating those poison chocolate chip cookies. She tried to poison me. Anyway, I'm still alive after almost dying from the poisoned Israeli cookies, and we start talking. Then, you're not going to believe what happened next. The waiter asks us if we want something to drink, but he's wearing the Star of David. So I'm like, I ain't about to drink no poisons lemonade from you, you Mossad agent. So anyway, I almost die again from Israeli lemonade poisoning. And Erica is like, I'll just have some water, please, which is obviously code for, you better kill this bitch right now. Am I right? So we talk, and she tells me I'm acting crazy or whatever. So I asked her to show me pictures of her of when she was younger. And she's like, why? So I'm like, oh my God, she doesn't have any. So I just discovered she's actually a man, and I'm now talking to this man who is probably an Israeli spy sent here to kill me. So I get up, I go to the bathroom, I dig a hole under the like El Chapo, and I finally made it back to tell you guys the story and get paid millions by YouTube to keep you guys stupid and against Trump and Turning Point, because I'm just a piece of like that. Anyway, thank you for your views, retards.
And that's what happened while we were away.
About 15 seconds into that, I wanted to die from Israeli lemonade poisoning.
I think Steve might be muted.
I don't think I'm muted.
Okay.
No, I had to gain my, I'd not seen that. Oh my gosh. Oh my. The thing is, some of that is really not parody, which is, some of that is a summary of what the programming has been like there. But hey man, it gets you paid. You know, that's what gets you paid. I'm reliably informed. I mean, I saw people now attacking each other on the basis of how many downloads they get. That determines whether what they're saying is true or not. So here we are. Aaron's Montage brought to you by Preborn. This Christmas, as we give the gift of life, you've got an opportunity to share that gift with a mom who is considering the murder of her baby. And this is where so many of you have stepped in, tens of thousands of you guys have. And it's been, the generosity is why we've kept this partnership going the last few years. I know a lot of you are looking for your end of year giving options. you can't have a better option than the gift of life to this 5-star charity. And for as little as $28, you can fund an ultrasound that could save a baby's life today. And I would argue maybe save mama's eternal life and her destiny too. So make that donation today, please, when you go to preborn.com/Steve. Again, you guys have been awesome, incredible. Let's keep it going at preborn.com/Steve. Again, that's preborn.com/Steve. Real quick, because this seems to be now a perennial thing at Christmas, the Joseph and Mary stuff. They were not illegal aliens. They weren't even refugees under the traditional term. Okay, they were Rome. They were under the jurisdiction of Rome. They were not given citizenship rights, but they were subjects of Rome. All right, they were called to a census to be taxed. All right, they were not outsiders. This was Joseph's hometown. That's why they were there. All right. Unfortunately, because everybody had to go somewhere to get to be subject to the census, this small little town on the outskirts of Jerusalem was overrun with people. All right. They did not look at this husband and wife and say, "Hey, brown skins, out with you." You know, "Hey, we just Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal Judea." That is not what happened. All right. They were making a long trek on their own. All right. And the place was overrun. Okay. That's why it's no more room at the inn. It's not no more room for, the likes of you. All right. Not even when they fled to Egypt were they refugees, because Egypt, remember, courtesy of Cleopatra and Marcus Antony, was now also under the jurisdiction of the Roman Empire. So it's a little bit more like when the Dukes fled Hazard County in Georgia to another county that Boss Hogg doesn't have jurisdictional authority to get to them. All right. So this entire narrative is a crock, an absolute crock. And somebody brings this up every single year. This thing has become a thing, and I have to do this every single year. All right. But it's dead wrong. Solid hermeneutic there, bro. Other than everything you just said was wrong. Okay. And Todd, you can maybe speak to this, but I am reliably informed that, quote, "I grew up Catholic," end quote, is code speak for I haven't been confession or mass, all right, in a coon's age. That's typically what it typically means, right? Is that what that's code for typically?
There's that. I also absolutely think this guy most certainly knows the too deep of the Minnesota Vikings, but has no understanding of basic theology. And thirdly, and most importantly, Steve gave you the very in-depth version. Let me give you a quick elevators version of the Christmas story. Very shortly after the tale that he is inaccurately and dishonestly referring to, there's this thing called the slaughter of the innocents. There's real evil in the world, and it started instantly. And you want to paper all that sort of evil over in your backyard so you can lie about what the birth of the Savior means and why it happened at all. My goodness. Go be a really bad travel agent, because that's all you're good for. Law and order clearly has no basis in fact for you. You are failing biblically at that as well. Steve has told you many times what the agent of the government, an agent of the government is for, to be an avenging angel. You just admitted you have no interest in that. You are a failure on multiple levels. Amen.
And that's actually a good segue to the second topic I wanted us to address. When you talk about justice, and you talk about the amount of evil in the world. And I want to share with you a response I had to a post that Matt Walsh made that I responded to just right before we went on the air. And find it here. Got so many windows up because we're on the road. All right, here we go. Matt posted about an hour ago. If the most prominent leftist in America was shot and killed on camera during a Democrat administration, the Democrats would spend every waking moment for as long as they held power using it as an excuse to ruthlessly crack down on the right, throwing hundreds of us in prison, avenging the death of their fallen comrade by any means available to them. Charlie Kirk was shot and killed during a Republican administration, and nothing like that has happened. There has been no crackdown, no mass arrests, no punishment of the left. We haven't seen any left-wing radicals frog marched in front of cameras and handcuffs and leg irons. Basically, nothing has happened. We have not gone to war with those who want to kill us and are killing us. When they get back into power, which seems increasingly likely very soon, they will not extend the same courtesy to us, I guarantee it. Everything Matt said there, of course, is correct. But I want to share with you the reply I had to Matt, because I think there's a dot to connect here we need to understand. The events that Matt is talking about, the lack of punishment of the betrayers of our country, and the increasing likelihood that Democrats will return to power soon as next year's midterms, these things are directly correlated. They are directly correlated. When you look at this last election, there were two groups of people who put us over the top. Trump actually had, now it's still very, very strong, mind you, but Trump actually had the weakest white evangelical output that he had in his previous two runs. This was actually the worst white evangelical turnout he had had. He clearly lost a few points with, by running away from the life issue. It was still a very potent, a potent part of his coalition, still likely the largest part of his coalition. But there was a dip there. There were two groups of people that put us over the top, and not just in the Electoral College, but also in the popular vote. Those two groups of people were the Maha voters, who don't, and these are two groups of people that don't traditionally vote Republican. The Maha voters did so. And then the bro dude, Theo Von and Joe Rogan crowd did it. What they were primarily interested in is this is where their interest intersected overlay with a core part of MAGA's interest as well. The idea that a guy that they tried to shoot in the face in broad daylight and can't explain how a math club shooter was able to scale a barn and get within a couple of 100 yards to get a kill shot straight on against the President of the United States, against the entirety of the Secret Service and local police department. They can't explain that and still haven't. And frankly, they're not even asked really to do so on most days. And so these people want accountability. They think much of what we see is a scam. They think they absolutely believe in the unibrow, uniparty. They're non-ideological. They've got a various assortment of interests. Rogan will tell you on his show on a regular basis, he's very socially liberal, but he also thinks the tranny stuff is insane. They're just kind of everyday Americans, and they don't like being lied to. And so the idea that a guy that they tried to shoot in the face, he's such a threat, they tried to murder him in broad daylight in an open field so he couldn't beat him in an election. The idea then that he would be extra and then right after that, somehow a guy with direct ties to Ukraine got a hold of the president's private schedule to find where he was golfing on a Sunday when it wasn't publicized off grounds to get another attempt at a kill shot against him. What they were thinking, Todd and Aaron, is if there was anybody ever motivated to drain the swamp, ever motivated to fulfill JFK's threat to splinter the military-industrial complex, CIA, intelligence community into 1,000 pieces, what have you. If anybody ever had such motivation to follow through on this, if they were given the power, it had to be this guy and his administration. Those two groups right now, Maha is back, I guess. Early this year, they were very disappointed. I do think the second half of the year has gone better for them, but we are hemorrhaging the Theo Von, Joe Rogan crowd. We're hemorrhaging that group. And in that group, you're going to get a lot of those young Hispanic men that voted for us, a lot of those young black men that voted for us. Right? Trump got, one out of every four black males voted Trump. Somewhere between 1 and 4, 1 and 5. Trump won Hispanic men by double digits. There's a lot of Rogan, Theo Von kind of voters in there, in that group. And that group's off the reservation, man. They feel like they kind of got hoodwinked. And I doubt they're going to vote Democrat. I think it's way more likely they're just not going to vote. And so what Matt is articulating is correct, but they're not two separate events. They're directly correlated. For whatever reason, why we have not punished betrayers. I mean, just the story that, Aaron, you led off with today on the Mar-a-Lago raid. I don't get it. I don't. Listen, I'm just going to say it out loud. I don't understand, and I look forward to his explanation, and I love the man, but I don't understand how Dan Bongino can go there and not arrest these people and then come back to a podcast like nothing ever happened and then just go back to doing the exact same content he was doing before. I don't understand that. I mean, I really don't. And I'm not alone, and millions of people are going to have that question, and he's going to have to answer that, frankly. And so no one was punished for any of this. No one was. They just give us information. I'm supposed to get you guys all worked up. Aaron's supposed to throw it in his montage. I'm supposed to write columns on it, do podcasts on it, get you all stirred up. And then, this relationship never gets consummated, man. We never get to the wedding night. We just rush to the altar over and over and over again. You know what they call, by the way, an unconsummated marriage? Annulled. It's not really a marriage. An unconsummated marriage is considered annulled. Both in ecclesiastical and civic authority, an unconsummated marriage is considered annulled. How many times have we not consummated this marriage? Get all worked up. We get all the clicks and ratios, send it all to you. You get all gymmed up, worked up. And then the marriage is never consummated here. Over and over again. Just an annulment, just endless annulments. And so it is because these people have not been punished the way Matt is describing that it is increasingly likely Democrats are going to regain power again next year because nobody demoralizes their base like the Republican Party has. They have absolutely demoralized their base. Gentlemen, your thoughts on that?
Well, despair isn't an option. But if it was, that would be the most logical choice at the end of that tale. I'm in the same place as Steve. If I'm 53 years old, and I've been told by my wife and other people who thought they knew me and liked me, but they were like, yeah, probably not that. I will do what I say. And I just don't. If I had been had my property falsely invaded and attempts on my life been taken multiple times, I'm absolutely certain that when I had the goods, there wouldn't be doing it without the goods. But there's low-hanging fruit everywhere. If I had the goods, I would return fire. And Donald Trump, just like Steve said, was supposed to be unambiguously that guy. And right here, just within the last 48 hours, whoever's around him, please remind him that that's what people want more of and less of jackassery aimed at Rob Reiner. Because if that's your version of payback, it ain't close to good enough.
So on the topic of, Matt Walsh's post and your response, Steve, I do hear a common refrain. Well, how do you track down an organization like, say, Antifa, that's by design decentralized? Well, they've had Marxist organizers and other organizations like Black Lives Matter just out there saying, we are trained Marxists. We know what we're doing here. You go after the leadership structure of some of these organizations. If you really believe Antifa is a foreign terrorist organization, then we should be seeing arrests of people who say that they're in leadership. Should we not? I guess there's a professor, maybe it was at Brown University, who fled the country after the murder of Charlie Kirk because he was so afraid about the backlash. He kind of looks dumb now, don't you think? There are things you can do. There are always things you can do. Even if a prosecution doesn't work out, you're at the very least sending the message that you don't get to use the process as punishment any longer. Mm-hmm. You're at least do that. If you don't get to put people in prison, at least send the message that we can use the process as punishment as well. But the days of, well, that gives up our moral high ground, guys, when you're in war, nobody's thinking about the moral high ground.
Right on.
Unless you're violating God's word, which we should be cognizant of, you have to view this as a cold civil war, but a war nonetheless. And so you should be doing everything in your power that actually indicates you realize that to be the truth. So I do sense a lot of demoralization right now. I think we're still somewhat early, but definitely past the honeymoon.
And, you know, the sad irony of everything we're talking about here, fellas, is he still gets tagged as if he's doing the stuff that we elected him to do that he's not. That's the sad irony of this. Fascist, dictator, wants to round up his enemies, right? These are still their talking points. So we are again, I've done this one before. We have max lit their base. We've max lit them. And then demoralized our own by not following through on our own claims. I mean, so I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't understand it. And, you know, the one thing I do get and I understand now is back during the last primary, there was a large segment of our audience that differed with us. And the grounds were because you guys thought that the number one thing that needed to happen was exposure. Remember these conversations we had during the primary? That the number one thing that needed to happen was exposure and that he was going to provide it one way or the other. And you know what? You guys turned out to be right about that. Now, much of what we've learned this year is not the kind of exposure, frankly, we were hoping for. All right? But I mean, even on a subject that we scoff at, go back to the interview with Tim Burchett last week. There's lots of stuff I'd like to be able to tell you that I've seen and haven't seen on the UAP UFO situation, but the Trump administration won't let me tell you. You know, without mutual assured destruction, if bullies do not feel like there is any threat, that they will also have to face the sight and smell of their own blood, they're going to keep bullying you.
Yes. In this target-rich environment like that, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel should be absolute rock stars by now. And my great fear is perhaps this isn't just mere accidental incompetence. This was designed incompetence. They were actually perhaps chosen because they wouldn't be rock stars on this front.
That's an incredible point. I mean, the reality is they were given the two jobs that would make them the biggest stars of our movement for the rest of their time by following through on. The amount of cashing in on those jobs they could do. Instead of using a government private plane for date night, Kash could have his own private plane for a change. It's just very disappointing. I mean, and then all the data out there, I just look at our own side's polling. I don't even look at the mainstream media stuff anymore. I just look at our own side's polling. It all indicates it's bad. It's very bad. And some of this, if the economy improves, will improve that. But the problem is the more we demoralize our own base, the greater the economic boom we need to compensate for that. You know, so the bigger the economic boom we need next year is, and the margin for error, therefore, that we have shrinks. We're going to get annihilated in next year's midterms on a major economic boom and or real accountability of the people betraying this country, because that's one of the main reasons you guys even voted for this administration in the first place, especially the entire Rogan Vaughn crowd that usually doesn't even show up and even vote, frankly. They're so cynical and conspiratorially minded. All right, I'm going to take a pause. Todd and Aaron will take over for the next segment. I'll see you guys again at the top of the hour.
Every generation has its signature voices, whose singular name echoes throughout every holiday season. Bing, Sinatra, Elvis, Mariah, and now, Candace.
Dashing to the bank, thanks to my engagement ring. I'm a grifting tool, laughing at you fools, ha ha ha!
That's right, it's Candace, as you've never heard her before, bringing you the fullness of joy this Christmas with her trailblazing flair and brutal honesty. Nothing says, trust me, bro, this time of year quite like a Candace Christmas.
That's Candace, you gave me your clicks, but the very next day I sold out anyway. This year, for even more fame, I'll try to frame Josh Hammer. It's the most profitable time of the year. There'll be podcasts for hosting, former friends for roasting, and plenty of gullibles to deceive. There'll be scary Jew stories, tall tales to boost my glory from text, fake from long, long ago. Guitar baby, slip Alexis under the tree for me. I've been an awfully good girl, guitar baby, and rushed that wire transfer tonight. Shapiro got run over by yours truly. I can't believe that dumb Israeli ever hired me. You could say there's no such thing as blasphemy, but I can't even turn Crisis King into idolatry.
But don't worry, it's not all fun and frivolity. A Candace Christmas is also here to honor the real reason for the season.
Listeners, did you know that I'm playing you and your double-digit IQ? Listeners, did you know there's nothing I won't say and nobody I won't betray? Silent night, no Jews inside. I'll be calm when the Zionists are gone.
But that's not all. This collection has so much more to offer. Like, baby, there's Jews outside. Rudolph, my favorite SS agent. You're beginning to look a lot like incels. Little Groiper boy. Oh, little town of Tehran. Joy to the bots. I saw Macron kissing, whatever the hell that was. The Jews are trying to kill me again, send money. What time zone is this? And happy Christmas, the grift is never over, and more.
A lot of Qatari Airways privilege cards. Very hot right now. Trying to purchase that album. It is time for Buy, Sell, or Hold while we wait for Steve to return to the program. This is one of the favorite segments for some people on the program every single week. Buy, Sell, or Hold. You submit your very spicy takes on basically any events, either current or in the future. I compile those submissions and I usually set them before Steve and Todd. Well, Steve is gone right now, so it's just going to be Todd and I playing this. And then usually somebody complains that I didn't take their submission. That's a weekly event as well. Todd, any expectations for this final Buy, Sell, or Hold of the year?
I don't know. People bring it in this segment just about as well as any segment we have. So I never expect to be let down, let alone on this version.
Well, let's get started then. Buy, sell, or hold. Buy if you agree with the statement. Sell if you disagree. Or hold if you're a complete and total pansy. The penalty for holding this week is that, man alive, I don't think Lindsey Graham is going to be at AmFest. Probably not. The hold this week is that you are labeled as a hater of Christmas if you hold. And it's a label that you're not going to be able to get away from. If you hold this week, you just hate Christmas and puppies. Let's begin. Below Elbow Guy says, podcasting has replaced, or at least is in the process of replacing, the televangelist movement of the late 1960s through the 90s, and that's why listeners can be so staunch in the beliefs of the host. However, the hosts now have immediate audience feedback, so beliefs are more fluid. Buy, sell, or hold, Todd?
Well, I'll mostly buy. I'm not so sure about the last part, though, with beliefs are actually more fluid. I think that it depends on what you mean by that. If it's fluid in terms of loyalty to the the particular podcast host slash televangelist you're talking about, or about the ideas themselves? Because
beliefs aren't really beliefs if they're fluid.
Yes, I think that's a lot of things about this thing. You'd think. I think a lot of people are more or less fluid, more rigid about like radical ideas. Like it's not unfair to debate radical ideas, but when they are clearly fairly new to the scene and you are locked into them as dogma and everybody else is a heretic, even though they're basically talking about things the way they've been talked about in an orthodox sense for like centuries. So I guess I don't have a certainty of what you mean by fluidity there, but your broader premise, televangelist podcasters, because I just saw another pastor, Pastor Steve from Phoenix, who's like, what a gay religion Catholicism is. He says he's a pastor of what, where, in a strip mall in Phoenix. So, point made.
Below elbow guy, I think I know what you're talking about here. I think what you are describing is that digital media has incentivized and made it possible for immediate audience feedback, but it's incentivized that immediate audience feedback has incentivized and enabled the belief in mammon, in money, in making money, in accumulating impressions. That is the true belief here. I think that's what you're trying to get at, is that there are a lot of people, because of the, I don't know if atomization is maybe the right word, but because of the basically democratization of mass media, you can get that immediate audience feedback, and it's far easier to see what gets more clicks and what gets more impressions than what doesn't. So that's the true belief there, is I'm just trying to get attention and impressions and clicks and maybe money. That's the true belief. And so your views or what you're saying, the content is much more fluid now. So overall, I think I'll buy on this, but I don't know if podcasters and specifically televangelists are necessarily a great comparison. I think it's just replaced old media of all forms. Podcasting has. So I think that's kind of what you're getting at. But overall, the sentiment, I'll buy. Next, we go to the Sniper BBB says, Carol of the Bells is the best Ukrainian export. It's a Ukrainian composer. Can't remember his name.
I did not know that, but my goodness, that's an easy buy, because Carol of the Bells is just incredible.
I'm trying to think of anything else that is uniquely Ukrainian, and I'm coming up empty, so I'm going to have to buy. It is a fantastic, fantastic piece around this time of the year. Jonathan says, the Mount Rushmore of holiday... Man, I wish Steve were here for this. Mount Rushmore of holiday airline travel features. 4, pre-check lines longer than the standard line. 3, weather delays. 2, slow passengers walking abreast. 1, podcasters taping shows in the terminal. Yes. So the last time I flew was actually the DC trip. And I do recall seeing the TSA pre-check line at, I think it was when we were checking into Reagan. That was almost as long as the regular check-in line. It's like, what's the point here? Steve yesterday, just right on cue, right on point. Guess what, guys? Flight hasn't even left yet, and we're getting delayed. He ended up having a 90-minute delay, but he got out there, as you could see earlier today. The slow passengers walking 4 abreast, unless there's some sort of disability, I just increasingly, I don't know if it's just a breakdown in society. I don't know if I'm just getting older and even more curmudgeonly, but I have so little patience for people with a lack of spatial awareness, for a lack of social awareness, especially in places like Costco. I mean, I've just had to adopt a rule. There's no more Mr. Nice Aaron when it comes to Costco. It is kill or be killed when you go to Costco, especially the West Des Moines Costco, because it's so truncated and so small. But yeah, in airports, in public places, people who have just very little or zero awareness of anything other than their own group or their own person, I just cannot stand that. So, Todd, buy, sell, or hold this Mount Rushmore of holiday airline travel features.
I am selling because when it comes to partaking in an endeavor where a large mass has to get off the ground and fly and safely land in another place, like, I want all the levels of efficiency poured into that, and my level of tolerance for a lot of things goes up in a lot of other areas. I just look at society. Ain't going great. Let's make sure that as long as that part's happening, when you go to an airport, your checklist of demands is pretty tight. And that we all just do our best, whether it's the holidays or not, in an airport. Just let's keep those trains running on time, huh, America?
Next, go to Aaron Reale, who says this: had the founders been placed in San Diego or the West Coast, the revolution would not have gotten off the ground. The uncomfortable and harsh conditions of changing seasons of most of the colonies require them to be harder, stronger, and more moral or godly men to be capable of such action. Todd, you want to take this first?
I'll sell on that. I mean, there's all kinds of debauchery and decadence and false starts on the East Coast. I mean, I do agree that the harsh conditions at times were a wake-up call of sorts. But listen, it's not like if they had come over and landed in San Diego in 1620, it wasn't like there wasn't like a sandals resort there or something like that. I mean, life would have been hard there too. So.
Yeah, this is an interesting submission. I think it's probably backwards, but I'm holding this in an open hand. If I'm misrepresenting what you meant, Aaron, forgive me. But basically, you're saying that the harshness of their environment produced hard men and faithful men. And while these things can be interconnected, and we just talked about this a few weeks ago, something like a Carrington event or a global emergency that would set us technologically back and get us out of our comforts, that I have to think on some level, we're not cheering for that because there would be a great deal of suffering as well, but that would produce some faithfulness. However, I think in the case of the subject at hand here, I think it was actually, when you look at like the Pilgrims, it was their faith, because they knew what they were getting into by this time. They knew what they were getting into in the New World. It was their faith, actually, that moved them here and that enabled them to weather the storms. I don't think it would have been any different. It might have been easier for them on the West Coast, but I don't think it would have been different, at least in the case of, the founders of this country, or at least when you go back to the settlement of this country. I don't think it would have been different, because I think you're putting it backwards. It's not the conditions of this country that produced faithfulness. I think the faithfulness produced this country, or at least the settlement of this country. Next, I'm going to go to Divine Spear. Each generation practices in excess what the previous generation did in moderation. Todd, you want to take this first?
Well, generally speaking, that sounds fair. As an absolute, I don't think that's necessarily true, and it speaks to what Aaron said. It is possible for the opposite to happen, for the moderation to happen in such a spiritually defined way that the next generation actually gets better, or perhaps goes too far the other direction and gets too austere. So I guess I have to sell. I think it's not as simple as that, but it often does happen the way you're talking about.
Because I think it often does happen the way that you're talking about. I will buy this. It is very much cyclical, however. Look at the baby boomers and the sexual revolution. Now their grandkids, the Zoomers and younger, aren't having sex.
Right.
So it's like, yes, there is, so boomers, sexual revolution. Your generation, porn, and really the millennials as well, at least the older millennials, porn generation. So that is a step up, kind of like this. And then we're having a reset here where there's no sex, basically. Or if there's no sex, based on a lot of surveys that we've seen. So it's very much cyclical. So it doesn't just keep going ad infinitum. There is a cutoff point, it seems like. But overall, this phenomenon, until you reach that cutoff point, I think that holds true, so I'll buy. One more briefly before the break. Eeyore Jeffy says a segment could be done on immaculate conception, lowercase I and C, versus immaculate conception, uppercase I and C, next year, and Steve and Todd still wouldn't be on the same page. Buy. That was one of the most bizarre things. And I know we say what happens in overtime stays in overtime, but my goodness, that was crazy last Wednesday.
Well, Steve asked, to his credit, he put that on the next day on his Theology Thursday question, and everybody agrees with me. So there's that. Not quite.
I
pretty much.
I saw a few, but it's not quite as cut and dried. It's very weird. I think maybe there's a misconception going on here on a couple of different levels. When we come back, hopefully Steve will be back with us. More buy, sell, or hold after this.
All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. Thank Todd and Aaron for holding down the fort here for the last 30 minutes while I hopped on Charlie Kirk's program with Blake and Andrew. Good to see those guys always. We're brought to you by our friends over at Masa Chips. There was a time when chips actually tasted like real food before the big corporations decided to swap out real cooking oils for cheap seed oils. And now everything, fries, chips, all of it was made back in the day before that with real beef tallow. That changed, though, in the 90s with these seed oils. So now we all feel bloated, sluggish, inflamed. The pictures of teen parties from the 50s, man, where people are just drinking fully loaded Coca-Cola, candy chips everywhere, and everyone's, everyone's thin. Every chick's got curves in all the right places, and every guy's wearing a size 32, 34 jean. Just blow my mind. How did they do this? Well, this is one of the ways that they did it. What kind of food were they eating? And that's what Masa does now. Because they went back, as Todd likes to say, we have to go back. They went back. All right, so they've got thicker, crunchier, sturdier chips than anything else out there. And you can give Masa or Vandy a try. Now, I want to tell you, we're talking about Masa. But in my monthly poker night, one of my buddies on Monday brought the Vandy crisps. Wow. Those blew my mind. They were so good. All right, so you can use code DACE25 right now at masachips.com or vandycrisps.com if you want. And hey, the tortilla chips are very good. Otherwise, we wouldn't promote them to you. And they've got the churro flavor, the blue corn, the lime. But the Vandy crisp knocked me off my feet. They were so good. All right, so code DACE for 25% off. Code DACE for 25% off at masachips.com, M-A-S-A chips.com, or vandycrisps.com. Code DACE for 25% off. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe, please, to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. And then please also, if you love the podcast, you can subscribe to that. A lot of you have, or hit follow if you're on Apple iTunes. You can also leave us a 5-star review. Tens of thousands of you have done that. So thank you very much. We appreciate each and every one of those. And so, gentlemen, let's pick it up. Buy, sell, or hold where you all left off without me.
We will continue on with Chase. The record spending we saw on Black Friday and Cyber Monday was at least in part due to families trying to purchase Christmas magic in these dark, godless times we're living in.
Buy.
I could buy that. Yeah. I mean, I could see that a lot of the purchasing that you weren't doing the last few months and you saved it up for this, to enjoy the most wonderful time of the year. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think that's pretty good analysis. One of those things, frankly, guys, that was probably so simple. We should have, figured that one out, when we were discussing it a couple of weeks ago, because it does make a ton of sense.
Next, we go to Calvin Carlson, who says one of the best parts of the Steve Deace Show is in the Christmas season is the beautiful Christmas bumper music in contrast after Steve goes on a Vanta Black or rant or finishes a righteous rant.
I will take your word for it. I mean, if you guys think that's one of the best parts of the Christmas season, then since it's positive about me, I'll buy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a fragile meal ego that can rival just about any other guys. You bet. I'll take the compliment. Sure. Thank you.
Brandon Dibdall has this, buy, sell, or hold Senate edition. We'll take these individually.
I'm already depressed.
John Cornyn loses his seat in the primary.
He better.
That I'm a buy. I think he's toast. Yeah.
Buy.
Republicans pick up a Senate seat in Georgia and Michigan.
I think this is possible, and I know it's going to sound crazy. I almost think Michigan is in better shape than Georgia right now.
I'm going to defer.
How is that possible?
I don't know the details on this.
I think that Whitmer ran for one term too many, and the natural inertia that comes, her AG Jocelyn Benson is struggling as a gubernatorial candidate right now, and there's still the basic instinct of I just get sick of politicians is helping the Republican Party there to act as maturely as it has for a very, very long time. And I think Brian Kemp's leadership in Georgia, which at times we have questioned because we thought it deserved to, at times has been very good and we've complimented it, but he has been at least competent. And I think that in some respects, the infighting that's gone on there since the special elections in January of 21, I think in some respects, maybe in Georgia, that state's in such good shape that they feel like they can entertain some of the Democrats' silliness, whereas Michigan has suffered tremendously for it. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? That maybe
yes.
Reality has bitten Michigan a little harder than it's maybe Georgia's flirting with letting it bite them.
Yeah, makes sense.
Next, Democrats pick up a Senate seat in North Carolina, and that's Maine, right, Emmy? Yes, Maine.
I think those are things are possible enough, I'll say. So I'll buy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going with Steve. This is too far out for me to know the details and specifics to make a remotely intelligent decision on this.
Finally, on this one, on his way out the door, and to screw the American people and the people of Kentucky one last time, Ditch McConnell puts his thumb on the scale and gets a total spineless, gutless wonder elected as his successor. We're taking a complete squish that would make Romney look like he has a backbone like a ramrod.
I think if there's a chance for Ditch on his deathbed to screw us like John McCain did with Obamacare, he is absolutely going to take it. Faster than you can say a root on branch. I can promise you that he's going to do that if he can muster the energy in between strokes. So whether that is specifically how he does it or not, I like the spirit of it. Sadly, I think is accurate. So I'll buy.
Andy Beshear is that state's governor. That whole state screams squish.
Next, we go to Con Cowboy, who says, despite it all, 2025 was better than 2024, and 2026 will be even better. We should cheer up.
Sell.
All right, you tell me why you sell.
The first part is is true. I'll absolutely take the past year over 2024. I think it would be dishonest at this point in the year for us to say otherwise, but to just automatically say the next year is going to be better and cheer up. Do you even Steve Deace show, bro? I don't. Not because
you should cheer down.
This is again facts. No, but not that facts. Evidence. We're not jingoistic emotionally one way or the other. I just don't like. There's all kinds of reasons that we've been talking about for a very long time, whether it's 24 or 25, that what we're doing isn't sustainable. So Pollyanna nonsense is not ever going to be what we're about on this show. And listen, my name's not on it. I feel very confident in saying what I just said.
So I agree. 2025 is a lot better year than 2024. All right. So I'll buy that part of it. Here's the problem with assuming that 26 will be better than 25. We have rudderless leadership right now on our side. Going back to the conversation we just had a minute ago, the Susie Wiles interview with Vanity Fair, I've not even had a chance to even address or talk about yet. The best you could say is that she knew that they were going to do that to her and did the interview anyway in the hopes that would give them a deflection point to, again, expose how biased the media is. But that seems to me to be 4D chess. Would that be 4D chess to do that? And, our official show position is there's no such, it's never 4D chess. Every other possibility for why you'd even do an interview with them as a White House chief of staff gets increasingly mind-numbing from there. I think we have a president, going back to the conversation we just had in our opening segment, I think we have a president that right now is torn between his desire to go after the people that went after him, which we're all for indulging that desire here. But at the same time, the pressure of looking like it's a competent administration. And think about the musical chairs of AGs, right? He even had to have an acting AG, a guy I've known for many years, Iowan Matt Whitaker. He even had to have an active AG for a while in his first term. And so you stick with people maybe longer than you should, because you don't want to make it look like it's a rut that you don't know what you're doing again. And it's, when are we going to make, when we're bringing Omarosa and Scaramucci back? I think that he's caught between these two desires. And then I think the loss of Charlie, and this is what I was just talking about to Andrew and Blake over on Charlie's show, and that meme, and I brought it up to them on the program. That meme of the giant dam, and it's labeled Charlie Kirk, and there's this rising body of water about to overcome the dam called the rights retardation. And then behind it, the dam that is Charlie, between that body of water, behind it is the right being focused on unifying and winning. I mean, I think about that meme a lot. I've got it right here on my desktop that I'm doing my show from today here in my downtown Phoenix hotel room. I mean, I look at that thing almost every other day at least. And let me repeat to you guys what I said on their show when they asked me about that. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's Christmas. Let's assume the best motivations for people. All right. Let's assume the best motivations, and that everybody is on the take to Qatar, or is gotten paid off by the Jews and Israel. Let's assume that a lot of the dissension we see comes from some place of sincere belief and conviction, even if some of us disagree with some of it vehemently. Let's assume that, just for the sake of the argument I'm about to make. You can't make yourself an apostle. You can't gloss yourself. You can't declare yourself a leader. You can't declare yourself a bishop. Charlie was put into this position specifically because that was not what he intended. That stuff happens organically. People recognize an anointing. They recognize a calling. And the combination of his integrity and quality as a man with the knowledge that he had and the respect for his ability to wield it and to communicate it, and then fear of him and his platform. A combination of all those things kept a lot of the leaders of these various factions that are right now at each other's throats, kept a lot of them at bay, so that these conversations could happen in our own little enclaves and subcultures, or a lot of times private dinners that Charlie held, that I was invited to a few of those. And then afterwards, hey, we've got a common foe and enemy. Let's get back into the battle and fight. Now, what's happened without Charlie here as that dam and that meme is the leaders of these various factions. Tucker, for example, clearly believes we need to decouple from Israel and align with the Islamic world. I think that's very obvious that he believes that. And as we get more and more into the new year, that's something I'm sure we'll discuss a lot more on the show, why or why not that is the right approach moving forward. But he clearly believes that. I mean, there's a video going around right now where he says that, okay? There's a lot of people that also are, Israel first, or Israel and America are intertwined and prophetically have to be for America to thrive as a country. You have libertarians that don't want to do things like immigration moratoriums. You have America firsters that don't agree with the America onlyers, all right, that think that we can just only focus on America. And so within each of these groups, there are people that have huge platforms and are leaders. If we need to have these debates, that's the thing. We need to have these discussions. All right. The same impetus that is driving Tucker to say things that I think are ridiculous, that we could have permanent relationships with Islam, because I just think there's 1,300 years of history that beg to differ on that. But that's the same impetus that drives him to give us information about Thomas Crooks that our guys that were running the FBI the last 8 months could have given us and did not. Right. And so there needs to be a place for these disagreements to happen. These conversations need to occur. We need a massive resetting of our movement and re-understanding of, and maybe we go back to doing some of the things we did before, like being closely aligned with Israel, but we've reassessed why that is. So now we've got good reasons and better reasons than I'm going to take Genesis 12:3 completely out of context and apply that. And that should be like America's foreign policy moving forward. Right? And I think that those things are okay, but for that to happen, two things need to occur. The leaders of these various factions, and I would include Tucker in that camp, the leaders of these various factions need some Charlie Kirk level maturity and understanding the collateral damage that they can cause in not having these conversations, but the way they have them. The way they have them. Well, Steve, it sounds like you're talking about tone. No, it's not about that at all. But it's not about having it's not that you brought Nick Fuentes on. It's that you whitewashed him. It's not that you disagree with Tucker. It's that you automatically assume the guy that was making $40 million a year at Fox and now is making more money than he ever made somehow only would have these beliefs because some sheik in Qatar gave him even more money than he could ever possibly spend. It's the automatic assuming the worst motivations of absolutely everybody. He's guilty of it. The people who criticize him are guilty of it. And all these various factions do this to each other. This is not something that was being done out in the open when Charlie was alive. That's number one. Number two, the leaders of these various factions have got to allow themselves to be questioned. Who has Tucker brought on to really allow himself to be questioned? One guy, Ted Cruz. And as much as I love Ted, and I probably have more views in line with Ted on the Israel question than I do Tucker, it was also very clear that Ted was wholly unprepared for that conversation. And this goes the other way too. I mean, I don't know. When has Ben Shapiro had somebody on who really differs with him on foreign? Maybe he's done it recently. I don't know. Maybe you guys have seen the clips. I don't know. But when's he brought somebody on that has a completely different view on foreign policy and let him go back and forth with him? Now, in Ben's defense, he's been willing to go on Tucker's show, and Tucker's not reciprocated. But there needs to be more of this. And if we're not going to engage each other, then if you refuse to, then I think we got to start asking, what are your real motivations then? Because that's not the stuff of a team. That's the stuff of a hostile takeover. And people are going to recoil at that. And so those are two things that, after Alexander the Great died, he left no heir, famously. And so all of his generals, the Seleucids, the Ptolemies, all of his generals went to war against each other for many years thereafter, fighting over the great conqueror's kingdom. And we are in danger of succumbing to that, and as soon as next year. And taking our dwindling midterm election prospects and making them even worse than we could possibly imagine sitting here on December the 17th. We have to control the things we can control. We largely cannot control many of the economic factors that Trump is trying to disrupt and paradigm shift, and neither can he. He can do some things better and differently, but he's the one that chose to go for the long-term reset. God bless him, but that long-term is the first term there. And a lot of people don't have long-term thinking and are living paycheck to paycheck and can't afford that. And so we can't afford, we can't control those things. Here are the things we can control. We can deal with each other way more maturely, way more honestly. Again, I like Megyn Kelly. She's been nice to me. I think she does a great job. She's got to have a better response to Josh Hammer than how's your podcast download coming? Come on. Again, I'm not even saying take Josh, and Josh I know way better than Megyn and consider him a friend. But if that's how we're going to respond to one another, then we're screwed, because those are the things we can control. Well, then what you're going to see is our tribal chiefs. Here are the Ptolemies, here are the Seleucids, and we're just going to turn on each other. And we're in real danger of that happening in 2026. You guys have any thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I think you covered it.
Well, this is something that would make 2026 better. Buy, sell, or hold from Convention of States is the way. Ilhan Omar will be deported in 2026.
Boy, when Liz Wheeler predicted this on the show we did with Glenn last week, looking ahead to the year, I mean, I jumped for joy, man. I was like, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. All right? We need to manifest this. Make it so, as Captain Jean-Luc Picard once famously said. So I'm going to just buy because it's Christmas, and that's what I want for Christmas. My kids keep asking me, what do you want? That. I want Ilhan Omar frog marched across the border. That's what I want.
Me too, but I'm just going to have to take the other side of the coin on
Don't you dare, Erzin. Don't you, Erzin. It's Christmas.
Going to have to
All
sell.
right, there's plenty of time for reality in January, brother. We're just running up the credit card right now, okay? Give this to me.
Can't do it, brother.
Next, Jeff Bayer.
Humbug.
Yes. Cheer down. Jeff Bayer says the foreign invaders in the USA finally took the advice of Sam Kinison and just moved where the food is.
Oh, gosh, I don't want to laugh at this, but because it's just gallows humor, man. But, dude,
that's brutally
true.
That's why I couldn't give it to you. It's true.
Yeah, that'll preach right there, my friend. That'll preach. That's a buy. You bet.
We got the sheriff out there saying you don't love Jesus if you will deport Ilhan Omar. I mean, I'm just reading the signs of the times.
Garbage Fisherman says the GOP will cave before the next quote-unquote shutdown in order to secure the minority in the midterms, which they are more than comfortable with being on the bottom. So buy, sell, or hold.
I'm thinking. Yeah. I know. You want to reframe it? Go ahead. Reframe
Republicans will not publicly, and they won't say this out loud, but they're just fine with tanking. In fact, they probably won't. If it looks like it's on the edge, they would be more comfortable with losing than winning.
To me,
that I completely agree with and will buy. The reason I'm hesitant is because Trump already disrupted the we can't ever have shutdowns narrative, right? So we're going to face another one. Then you're asking him to cave as well, okay? And that I'm not sure of. I mean, I could see him doing it pragmatically if he thinks it'll help him in the election. I can see him not doing it pragmatically if he thinks that will help him. I think he's the variable here. But in terms of the ethos of the Republican Party, I wholeheartedly agree. With that I would buy.
I think a lot of this has to do with who these guys with presidential politics and who they support along those lines. If it's a all in on Vance, or if factions are already building, I I just think that may very well have to do with a lot of this. So, gosh, I don't know. I haven't done it in a long time. But Aaron set the line down that if you hold, you hate Christmas. I don't really want to hold on this one. So, I'll sell.
Matt Toole says, with the news that the Southern Baptist Convention's abuse crisis, in quotes, was more of a sham than originally perceived, 2026 will be the year of the second conservative resurgence, and that really takes off. Yes, we should have Megan Basham back on the show to talk about this.
I mean, I hope that's true. I'm not a Southern Baptist. Not that I'm against them, but I don't go to an SBC church. But at William Wolf's request, I went down there and spoke to his group, trying to instigate and provoke that conservative resurgence in that denomination. We had about 1,000 people come to that event back in May, I think it was. So I'm heavily invested in it. I think, just as I've said about the direction of the Catholic Church and what it means overall for the West, this is the largest Protestant denomination in the West. So if you're any form of non-communist, even if you're godless, if you're any form of non-communist, you have a stake in what he is describing happening in the Southern Baptist Convention. It certainly doesn't make what William and his people are trying to do harder. It makes the case better for them and makes the case easier. So again, because it's the Christmas season and I want to be uplifting and hope-filled, I am going to buy.
I'm going to sell as well. I think, and this is less a Baptist thing or even a Protestant thing, just whatever a conservative Christian is, I think all too often that is still pretty darn close to self-help, or far closer to self-help, just like it is on the left than it is with Orthodox transcendence, getting outside yourself. I think faith has become very narcissistic. And until that stops, I don't think this can change because there's too much me involved in it. And church, scripturally, one body, many parts. What are your gifts? What are your role? How do you make the whole, the one, better? And that's what the church, just broadly speaking, is very bad at, and not just the liberal sellouts.
Tom Gabriel says, these are the two proudest moments for a girl dad. Number one, holding her for the first time, and number two, letting her go after walking her down the aisle.
I'll sell because, listen, I'm a girl dad 4 times over. I can't narrow it down to 2. There's just too many options.
Yeah, I think I'm going to sell too. One of the hardest things I've ever done in my life is walk Anastasia down the aisle. And I feel way more pride in the wife and mom she has become. The little things, watching her parent Autumn in the same family room that I used to come home from WHO drive time and do High School Musical karaoke with her every single night after the show, to the point I might still know the words to too many of those songs, right? I sense more pride with that. Walking her down the aisle. The same will be true when the time comes for Zoe too. I was such an emotional wreck that I didn't really have the time. Pride was the last thing on my mind, actually.
Next, we go to Fred, who says the Pope will apologize for Islamophobia before the end of the year.
Well, I don't know. He's kind of done that already, hasn't he? So,
you want to get Vanta Black? Christmas Eve Mass. And this is why we need to be more welcoming. But there's not much left for this Pope to do other than just, speak Arabic at this point, But if you think it can get darker on that topic, I'll indulge. I'll buy. I think it's entirely true that this could happen.
Next up is Shulva 1189, who says in 2026, Steve will change his show's ending from "Go Hard" to "Thanks for the views, retards."
That's, first of all, incredible. All right, let's not bury the lead, but no. That's
Not all, Sal, not all shows, just some shows.
that might happen a couple of times, but no, we're not gonna do that. All right, we'll put a pin in it there, and we'll continue on with bonus buy, seller, hold in the overtime today for subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. In the meantime, Miracle Made and their sheets, crafted with NASA-inspired silver-infused fabric that helps you regulate to your body temperature all night long, all year long, regardless of the change of seasons. Hot sleeper, cold this time of year, doesn't matter. These sheets help you get into the comfort zone all night long. I love them. All right, they're the only sheets that have been on our bed now. Well, we washed them and we have more than one pair. So it hasn't been like just them the whole time. But they're the only kinds of sheets that have been on my bed and our bed for the last 2+ years. By the way, that same silver technology that helps you with thermal regulation also helps with antibacterial sanitization as well. All right. So not only do you feel better, because they are very comfy, not only are you going to sleep better, but you're going to sleep cleaner as well. So upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/Deace to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%. And when you use promo code Deace, my last name, you'll get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift. And with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/Deace, code Deace at checkout. Trymiracle.com/Deace. Again, trymiracle.com/Deace, code Deace for the big discounts when you go to the checkout. All right. You guys aren't bringing me down. Some of you tried. It's Christmas, man. It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens, too. Right? So even Daniel Horowitz, he's going to try here in a few minutes, but even he will not be able to bring me woe and lamentation here during this most wonderful time of the year. He's going to try when we come back. I'll do chirp here.
Okay. And go.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by our friends over at Chirp. If you've been struggling with things like neck pain and back pain, even more importantly, I would say, if you are realizing the amount of calories you are currently consuming this most wonderful time of the year is not sustainable for you not to become a blimp and float away. Fly away, bird, fly away. All right, and you're thinking, all right, I gotta get back on the straight and narrow in January. And a lot of us are going to think that, right? Well, if it's been a minute since you've gotten active, you might learn things like muscle atrophy or certain nerves in your body might to rebel against you. You might learn the phrase trigger point, right? What Chirp does is also great for preventative healthcare. Trigger point rollers, like the kinds that Chirp produces, have kept me out of, knock on wood, serious injury as I continue an active lifestyle now, well into my 50s. If you're concerned about alignment, the Chirp Contour can help you with that. I've used that myself. Aaron has used the Halo to help with some of the nerve issues that can crop up, particularly as we get older and the more active we try to remain. I'm a huge fan of the Rolling Power massager, the mini version. In fact, it's sitting over there on my nightstand. In my hotel room right now here in Phoenix. I brought mine with me. That thing works absolute wonders. These are just some of the examples of the product line that Chirp has, because their mission is simple: to bring relief to as many people as possible so that you can feel better, restore your energy, and make self-care simple with these doctor-trusted, FDA-cleared devices. These are the same techniques they use in clinical treatments, but without all the expensive appointments and the time-consuming of those appointments as well. So visit gochirp.com/Steve and get started today. They'll give you free shipping on what you buy. free shipping on what you buy at GoChirp, CHIRP, like birdie chirp, gochirp.com/Steve, and they'll give you free shipping if you go there and get started today at gochirp.com/Steve. Well, for one final time in 2025, let's bring in the prophet of woe and lamentation, even though this is the most wonderful time of the year. Good to see you, Daniel. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Steve. How fast has this year gone by? Wow.
Yeah, it happens when you get older, especially when you were in prime child-rearing age, as you are right now. The years go by very, very fast. All right, let's do this. I'm going to throw you for a loop because we are in the midst of Hanukkah right now. The White House just had its Hanukkah celebration, right? Christmas Eve is 1 week from today. I want to know what Daniel Horowitz comes out of this year optimistic about.
You know, Steve, the biggest... No, I mean this seriously. I would say the biggest...
Hold on. Todd, Aaron, is that one of the most exasperated pregnant pauses that has ever aired in the history of this show, what you just saw right there?
Likely.
It's up there.
Yeah.
It's a contender.
I mean, it was painful. All right, like we could from on camera, you could watch Daniel's diaphragm retract or contract in real time. All right. Anyway, the floor is yours, my friend. Go ahead.
You know, Steve, nothing motivates people like fear of death. Okay, I mean. The bottom line is, economic stuff, forget it. Doing the right thing, forget it. Micah 6'8" is dead. But people do want to survive. And I think one thing I'm optimistic about is a very dark story of this year that probably if you and I were talking this time in 2024, we would not have thought that this would be the big story of the year. But one of the big stories, if not the biggest story, was the takeover of the American right to varying degrees with pro-Muslim Brotherhood talking points that, weren't just oriented towards taking the Arab side, the Muslim side over Israel, but the magnitude of their obsessive focus on that issue is the most important issue. The Jews did everything. Israel did everything. And again, Steve, we're not talking about the JV team, if you know what I mean. We're talking about you go down that iTunes list and you're going to see some of the top voices in the top 10, top 5 doing that, engaged in that. And then you scroll down, you have others that are sort of hoodwinking or winking and nodding at it or feel they need to indulge it in some sort of fake contrived, well, there's legitimate criticism of Israel theoretically, just in order to service it. So coming back to your point, I actually think we're closing out the year. I do think that's really being exposed. And sadly, it's taking a lot of tragedy as we're seeing just Islamic. So, in terms of that point with Hanukkah and Christmas, what Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood are seeking to do in the West is to drive the wedge between Jews and Christians rather than themselves. So, what's interesting is this time of year, you're finding Hanukkah celebrations are being attacked or canceled. 2 Christian celebrations were canceled, one in Germany, one in Paris, as a result of planned terror attacks by Muslim immigrants from Morocco, Egypt, and Syria to Europe. So I think, I mentioned you never find Muslim holidays disrupted out of security fears. I mean, maybe internally between Sunni and Shia. And I think over time, all people, but those that are actually on the Qatari payroll, I think are going to see this and move away from this point next year.
All right, let's do this. I have in front of me the current news podcasts, top news podcast in America, iTunes rankings. iTunes is almost half of the total podcast market. It used to be way more.
Yep.
Spotify has grown a lot. Amazon has grown in this space. So Apple iTunes has gone from a clear majority to a plurality. It's still the most used podcast access vessel in the country, but it doesn't have the stranglehold on the market that it used to have. But this is going to still, therefore, be a pretty good representation of the marketplace. Okay. Here, as of right now, are the top 3 news podcasts in America on the American right, okay? And you tell me if you would categorize them as friendly to the message that you just described, or to the traditional understanding of the American-Israeli alliance. Fair? Okay, you tell me. All right? You good with that?
Yep.
Okay, number one, Candace Owens.
To be fair, I think that's an entirely different category. That's just in the retarded category. I'm not sure how to, I don't know if that's her number one motivation. I really don't. I think there might be heebie-jeebie demons there, and this is just one of the symptoms of it.
Okay, number two, Megyn Kelly.
So Megyn would be in the second category that I alluded to, those who in an alternative universe would have never indulged this, but feel like they sort of have to referee it because they are either friendly or fearful or indulgent of the audiences of the other category.
Okay. And then number three is Tucker Carlson.
So look, I mean, Tucker just yesterday talked about this very point, albeit from the soil of Qatar. Now, I don't know if he went home in between speaking at the Doha Forum with the Hamas terrorists, the Qatari emir, and sort of interviewing him and saying that Qatar shouldn't be responsible for rebuilding Gaza, but I guess we are. I don't know. I mean, that was a long time ago. So that's a pretty long trip, unless he came back in between. But, Qatar Akbar, yeah. I mean, that is the Qatar Akbar for sure. Because here's my point that I just mentioned. This is not a side dish. This has been his main course. That's my problem. Like, if you're down there fighting big tech, talking about our issues with H-1B here and there, and then once in a while Israel comes up in the news, and you're like, yeah, what does Israel have to offer? But, I mean, he's the one making it news and doing so from Qatar.
So somehow we ended up here when I asked you a question of what you were optimistic about. So tell me then how we ended up here with that question as the prompt. How'd we end up here?
No, I think the reality is that in the Bible, you find many times where clarity is much more important than what I would say subversive murkiness. Mm-hmm. When Elijah basically rips into the Israelites, says, how long are you going to straddle the fence? How long are you going to, if you're with Baal, serve him. If you're with God, serve him. Well, I don't know. Why is it worse to straddle than to be completely with Baal? Well, it's simple, because when you're completely on the dark side, then other people won't learn from it and won't get taken in by it. It's sort of presenting America first as pro-Arab is the problem. But when you come not in sheepskin, but as a wolf in Qatar, I think it's becoming clear to people what's going on there.
Gotcha. Okay. I do think this, and this will be one of the things I'm going to predict when we return on January the 5th for the first show of the year. If we, and I would have never forecasted this 12 months ago, that we were going to spend a good portion of time in 2025 on our side after this last election arguing about the Jews. I didn't ever guess that. Okay. What I think we're going to argue about quite a bit in 26 is the Muslims. I think there's going to be a massive fault line.
They get a vote.
Yep. And I think there's going to be a massive fault line. And I also think, though, that this maybe is a little nuanced too, in that, hey, if some, I won't call them Muslim, Arab countries. If some Arab countries have leaders who are just as cynical about their country's claimed religious traditions as ours seem to be, and in the end would really just like to have a Warner Brothers amusement park in Dubai and have access to American OnlyFans girls for their harems, and in response decide they no longer care about the fake Palestinian question and they want to help blow up some Iranian drones when they fly into Israeli airspace, I'm totally fine with just bribing them to sell out. I don't care. All right. I don't care. I'm totally fine with it. All right. But that does not come with the cost of then we're going to import their worldview over here, right?
Yeah.
Because this seems to me like the corollary or the analog to we're going to fight them over there so they don't come over here. So we fought them over there and then imported them over here anyway, right? I am totally fine, okay? I hope Don Jr. cuts a deal with every sheik in Saudi Arabia, every single one. All right. In fact, I hope Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia exhaust their supply of drones shooting down Iranian missiles over the Iron Dome next year and for all the years to come. All right. Not my country, not my business. As long as they're staying out of our way, I mean, go build all the hotels over there you want. I don't care. All right. But if it comes with the cost of, and then we're still going to import that over here, well, this just seems like the commerce version of the military industrial complex that we just suffered through. So pick one. All right. Exactly. I am fine doing all kinds of business with those Arab countries. If they'd rather be more Arab than Muslim, and they learn that if they give their people prosperity, they're going to be way less inclined to fall into Wahhabism, then God bless them and pass the Gene Kirkpatrick School of Foreign Policy. All right. Totally agree. But if the cost of that, though, is, we have to still import their worldview into us,
yes,
then we're just doing the same thing. We're just trading weapons for wampum. You see what I'm saying? But it's the same thing. So we're going over there and bringing it over here. We got to stop doing that. I'm fine going over there and cutting deals and bribing people not to believe in Allah and all the hadiths. Totally kosher with it, man. Totally love it, in fact. All right. Bribery over war, I think that's usually greater than, right? If, though, the cost is, they get to buy our storytelling movie studios, they get to take over our universities, they're the private equity firm that control all our college sports teams and all this other stuff, well, then it's the same thing we did before, Daniel. It's just we're doing it with wampum instead of weapons.
No, and I think that's a brilliant point. And what you described, the dichotomy there, you mentioned Dubai. Well, that is the two scenarios you laid out. That is the difference between UAE, for example, and Qatar. Mm-hmm. UAE doesn't have a subversion operation in the United States. In fact, they ban Al Jazeera in their host country. Here's the question I have for you. You talk about modernizing where you sort of prioritize prosperity, maybe even some hedonism with some of those sheiks over your religion. How come you have that dynamic in Dubai, but you don't have it on our own shores in America, the source of abundance and hedonism among the Muslims here? And the answer is because Al Jazeera is piped into every one of their homes. Yeah. Every mosque, every private school, which is now a problem with these voucher programs are actually now going towards. That's a big story in Texas and Florida and these states. Who do you think's funding them? Qatar and Turkey to an extent. Erdogan is also involved in that. And that's the problem. So we're ensuring, to the extent you could have Muslims that sort of don't take their Quranic interpretations literally, and it's sort of just a Santa Claus deep version of a Christian keeping Christmas. That would be their version of Islam, but they just want to succeed, have their kids educated, live their lives. You can't have that with the Qatari subversion. I mean, that's what's so frustrating about this. So it's a two-pronged thing. It's the immigration, like you said, under Bush, invade the world, invite the world. But then now, if we're going to invite Qatar to be a partner with everything in the U.S., have a base here, there's more congressional correspondents that are credentialed for Al Jazeera than the New York Times. It's something like 110 to 85.
That's an incredible number. Great stuff, my friend. Appreciate you as always. All right, we'll see you in the new year.
All right, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's. Take care.
Thank you. Same to you. Todd and Aaron, final thoughts on the two of you. We got about a minute to go. What do you think?
I'd just like to circle back. Is Candace's lemonade poison still an option?
Gosh.
I mean,
it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Did you see it's going to be 60 degrees on Christmas Day?
Is it really?
Yeah.
So the one day of the year that I really want it to have a foot of snow and minus 10, it's going to be 60.
Yeah, we keep messing with the way of things. I don't like his point about Tucker, and if it was just like what I was kind of trying to defend. A lot of weird conversations going on here, some weirder than others, but a lot of stuff that's helping us and breaking up ice jams. Then you can get weird on Israel. But like this, going over live from Qatar when
it's Saturday night.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
When England is being overrun, American cities, taxpayers on the way to that. That's going to happen here. There's nothing that is going to stop that for our children's generation of the way things are going. And so, yeah, pass the lemonade.
Cheer down.
We wish everyone within the sound of our voices a Merry Christmas. Go hard, Romans 8:28.